Memorial Day, of course, commemorates those who gave their lives serving our nation. And a fact that takes on extra meaning this year is 48 members of the armed forces from southern Colorado lost their lives while deployed in Iraq. Military reporter Chris Van Cleve has more tonight.
March 23rd saw the first southern Colorado casualty. Marine Corporal Randall Rossiker died in an Iraqi ambush. May 1st, 2003, Private First Class Jesse Gibbons drowned when his tank fell into the Euphrates River. He became the first Fort Carson soldier to die in Iraq. Just a few weeks later, his wife gave birth to their second son.
He's not ever going to be able to hold him, and that bothers me. He never got to see him. He didn't know he was a boy.
8 days later, a helicopter from the 571st Air Ambulance Company crashes, killing Sergeant Richard P. Carl, Chief Warrant Officer Hans Gukaisen, and Chief Warrant Officer Brian Van Dusen. Major Matthew Schramm is the highest-ranking Fort Carson soldier to die in Iraq, killed May 26th while riding in a convoy that came under enemy fire. The same day, Sergeant Keeman Mitchell, part of the 3rd Brigade combat team, drowned. Sergeant Thomas Broomhead of Canyon City and Staff Sergeant Michael Quinn died May 27th of last year when gunmen fired on their security checkpoint. Another checkpoint ambush killed Sergeant Michael Dooley on June 8th. He left behind a wife and unborn child. Staff Sergeant Andrew Picorni lost his life saving a fellow soldier when their personnel carrier flipped.
PSC, whenever it was inside the vehicle, and from the roll, he was probably falling towards the hatch. Sergeant Picorni probably just pushed him back in.
He became the 10th Fort Carson soldier to die in Iraq on June 13th. Staff Sergeant William Latham died June 18th from shrapnel wounds. Sergeant Melissa Valles died of non-combat injuries on July 9th. Captain Josh Byers, a former general's aide, died after being hit by a roadside bomb on July 23rd. His wife received a letter from him the day he died.
He was just saying to me, even after being gone, hang in there. You know, there's a reason that we're going through what we're going through.
Sergeant Taft Williams, a member of the 3rd ACR, died August 12th. 2 more Fort Carson soldiers lost their lives on August 23rd. South Carolina native Private First Class Vaughn Mack and Specialist Stephen Scott, both from the 3rd ACR, died in separate non-combat incidents. 2 days later, Specialist Ronald Allen died after being hit by a car near Baghdad.
It's the toughest thing you can do as a soldier. Bury, say goodbye, have a memorial service, and try to have some kind of closure.
Captain Brian Fonts was electrocuted September 18th. 2 days later, Staff Sergeant Frederick Miller was killed by an improvised explosive while on patrol. Specialist Tamara Ramos, the 20th Fort Carson soldier to be killed, died of non-combat injuries. She was 24. Private Benjamin Freeman drowned October 13th. Specialist Jose Mora died in an ambush 11 days later.
He was a great guy. He was really caring. Always there for me.
November 2nd is the largest mass casualty incident to hit Fort Carson since Vietnam. A Chinook helicopter carrying 17 Fort Carson soldiers is shot down. 13 are wounded, 4 are killed, including Sergeant Ernest Bucklew, Private First Class Darius Jennings, Specialist Brian Peniston, and Staff Sergeant Daniel Bader.
He was just coming home to see us for the 2 weeks so that he could get to know his little girl. And now he's not going to know what she's going to look like, how she's going to be, or anything, because she was just barely 6 months old when he left.
November ended up the deadliest month of deployment for Fort Carson. In all, 9 soldiers lost their lives. Specialist James Wolfe, Staff Sergeant Dale Panshot, Corporal Gary Coleman, Specialist David Goldberg, and Staff Sergeant Stephen Bertolino all died in November, prompting George Bush to make his first visit to southern Colorado as president.
You have faced hardships, and you faced them together. And I want you to know, our whole nation is grateful to our military families.
December would see 3 Mountain Post soldiers lose their lives in Iraq. Specialist Ryan Ferguson fell out of a vehicle December 14th. 2 days later, Specialist Nathan Nankis died in another vehicle accident. December 20th, Specialist Justin Pollard, a member of the 3rd ACR, died from non-combat injuries. Sergeant Michael Yashinsky from Monument was electrocuted in Kirkuk Christmas Eve.
Valor isn't a big enough word for the man. I mean, there is no word that can describe what he did with us out there.
He's talking about his former commander, Captain Eric Haliwada. He earned the Bronze Star with Valor before being killed January 2nd in a mortar attack. Almost 2 months to the day after the Chinook crash, another helicopter, this one from the 571st Air Ambulance Company, went down in Iraq. It killed 4 from the mountain post, including the pilots, Chief Warrant Officer Ian Manuel and Chief Warrant Officer Philip Johnson. They died along with Crew Chief Specialist Christopher Golby and Medic Michael DiRamondo.
I think my son is, and the other members of the 571st are the true definition of an American hero. These men daily went out and risked their lives to save other Americans.
Later in January, Master Sergeant Kelly Hornbeck from the 10th Special Forces died after being hit by an improvised explosive device. In February, 3 more Fort Carson soldiers fell in Iraq. Private First Class Armando Soriano died in a non-combat vehicle accident. Chief Warrant Officers Matthew Laskowski and Stephen Wells, who volunteered to go to Iraq so other soldiers could come home, died when their KOAA helicopter crashed in Iraq.
I was crewed up with Matt Laskowski. In all practicalities, he took my place.
March brought the final 2 Fort Carson casualties in Iraq, Lieutenant Michael Adams and Master Sergeant Richard Ferguson. As thousands of Fort Carson soldiers returned home, Colorado Springs native and Mitchell High School graduate Ryan Reed died in Iraq. 45 Fort Carson soldiers and 3 more who grew up in southern Colorado. All of them heroes, all of them paying the ultimate price for serving their country. At Fort Carson, Chris Van Cleve, News First.